Welcome to Room to Grow with your ally Chad, a podcast where a white privileged male, me, invites people to teach him as much as they can about the sensitive subjects that are prominent in today's society, such as racism, women's rights, addiction, and mental health. This podcast is for open-minded people who want the information that is out there but don't know where to look. My name is Chad Moores. Join me and let's learn and grow together. Hello and welcome to Room to Grow with your ally Chad. Today we have Sharonda Davis with us today, who is an experienced nurse and the founder of Huddle DAO. Today we will today we will be speaking about Web3. Welcome, Sharonda.
Thank you so much, Chad. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for coming today. This is when did we talked, like maybe a month ago? Has it been that
One
long?
month ago. Yep,
Oh my
about a month
gosh, yeah,
ago.
and
Yeah.
we're finally here. I'm so excited, and we met through somebody, Marie, correct?
Marie, yes.
Yeah.
Her and I do Black Women in Web3 together.
Oh, isn't that great? Yeah, no, Marie and I were supposed to do an interview last week or 2 weeks ago, and I haven't heard from her, unfortunately, because I had to
Mhm.
reschedule our first interview, and then I don't know. I'm sure she's a very busy person, which is totally understandable. So I'll get to her another time, I'm sure. So,
Mhm.
so before we start the interview, there's this new thing that I'm trying out with all of my new guests, and I do what I call a hard icebreaker.
Mhm.
So it's pretty much like it's more of a controversial icebreaker. Not, I guess not maybe too controversial, but the question is there something in technology that negatively affects you, and how would you like it to be changed to better yourself and others?
So, one thing in technology that negatively affects me are some of the EMRs, the electronic records that we use in hospitals to chart while nursing. Those initially were thought to make things faster and easier for nurses. However, they're scrutinized by management for key details and documentation. And with the staffing shortages now, that is one thing that technology that really just burns my britches because they don't flow with our workflow. So oftentimes they slow us down, they hold us back. Sometimes they even cause you to make errors. So that's one thing in technology that I wish they would either continue to perfect or do away with. I would much rather just write down my nursing notes or have a different way to express them than these EMRs.
And that happens quite often in companies. I've worked for many different companies where they've tried new technology that's supposed to help us in some way, but ends up giving us a lot more aggravation. It may help us in that one thing that they're trying to help us with, but it's a lot of extra work that we really should be spending that time on other things. So I really do know what you mean by that. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I know you came here today to discuss Web3, something that I really know nothing about. I did a little bit of research on it, and honestly, a lot of the words were gobbledygook. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping that you can put a lot of this into layman's terms for me, because I wasn't really able to understand it. Because I don't. I mean, I know as much technology as every other person, but um, some of this stuff was very foreign to me. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about Web3 and how you got involved with that? It tells a little bit more about, I guess, your story about how you got involved.
Oh, sure, Chad. So, just for my story's sake, as you stated, I've been a nurse for the past 16 years, and coming out of COVID, being a travel nurse in some of the main areas that COVID was hitting, like New York and Atlanta, it really burned me out mentally. I think there was a point that I became severely depressed, and I know that it's directly related to my career choice. That led me to seek other options within nursing. And while I was doing that, I stumbled across NFTs. My youngest son is an artist, and I just was watching him and thinking, what will he be able to do in the future? I started doing some research and I stumbled across NFTs. Right away, I was able to understand Web3 and all of the components. And I was able to realize that this could be my ticket out of nursing and a key to a new world for me. So Web3 is basically, it's the new iteration of the World Wide Web. It's like, remember when cell phones first came out? And I'm not sure how old you are, Chad, but when they first came out for me, there was this big Aki cell phone. It was kind of difficult to hold, very not convenient. All it did was make a call. So that was similar to Web 1, right? When we got our first computers and we plugged them up, but all we could really do was read. That was the read only internet, Web 1. And then Web 2 came about with social media. We can interact more. Now we can read and write with the internet, right? We
Mm-hmm.
can interact. We can push. With Web 1, we would see a phone number, but we couldn't call it. But now with Web 2, we can see a phone number, we can click and we can call that phone number. So Web 3 is the next iteration of the web. It includes decentralized applications, blockchain technology, NFTs, and then you may hear a lot about the metaverse, which is a combination of augmented, virtual, and AI. So all of those make up Web 3.
Right. So I discussed the metaverse with another person a couple of weeks ago, actually. Somebody who actually worked for Facebook, but apparently was there during the start of the metaverse. Recently decided to leave to work on their music career. And something that I found very compelling, actually, was something that I got to see that was very cool was that it's very beneficial for people that are maybe transitioning. Some of the avatars that you can create and be more in a more professional setting or in a social setting, it doesn't really matter, and be able to be who you were born to be. I thought that was something that was very, very cool. And also, there was a lot of pluses to the metaverse that we were discussing. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Is there anything else? What are you working on right now?
So, but just to clear that up,
Mm-hmm.
in reference to the metaverse, there's not just one metaverse. I'm not sure if your friend emphasized that to you. Facebook is creating one metaverse, which is the combination of augmented reality and everything that I said. But there are also many other
Mm-hmm.
um, applications that are metaverses like Decentraland, Somnium Space, Sandbox. So the metaverse can be compared to various social media sites. So I do want to clear that up because I think there's a misconception that there's just one metaverse. There are many different metaverses being developed for many different reasons. As you stated, when you asked, what am I working on? We're the Huddle Down. We're working on a metaverse type training environment for nurses to close in some of the gaps that nurses are missing out on that are being caused by the nursing shortage. So our metaverse will include a simulated hospital where nurses will be able to go in and perfect or learn new skills. That we plan to scale it in a major way, even including some of our credentialing involved in our metaverse environment. So metaverses will become like Facebook pages in the future.
Oh yeah, and I think that the misconception came from that Facebook pretty much took
Right,
the
right,
title
exactly,
metaverse. They did
exactly.
they did that
Yeah,
on purpose. They
they
did.
did it on purpose. They did. They really did it on purpose.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So that'll be interesting in the years to come because a lot of companies have deemed their environments meta spaces, and Facebook has kind of copyrighted that. They have trademarked that word meta, so it'll be interesting to see how those terms change over time.
Mhm. Yeah. So, tell me a little bit more actually about what's the timeline looking like for something like this? Now, the last time I was talking to somebody about this kind of technology, I mean, it looks like it's like a 5 year, 10 year plan. It looks like it's pretty far away. Where are you guys right now with
So
this?
One major component of Web3 is the community aspect. In Web3, the focus on decentralization means ownership. You own what you do, you own who you interact with, you own the experiences that you have. So, a lot of our focus right now is on building up a community of nurses that understand Web3. So, that's the first part of our roadmap. We're just starting. We've had one in real life event, we have a virtual event coming up this week, and then we'll have another in real life, but community is the foundation of Web3. So that's what we're doing right now, is building the community that will want to come into our metaverse. As far as developing the metaverse environment, that could be done by the end of the year. Now, what we will need are the wearables and the technology to make it more functional. That building out may take 5 to 10 years. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why we're starting now with the community. And then slowly, as the technology grows, our community and our experiences will grow with it.
Right. So right now the technology is there. That's something that I've noticed, is that the technology is there.
Exactly.
It's getting that technology into people's hands. It's VR has been around. VR headsets have been around for quite a while now.
Yes.
And but not everybody is getting them. They have like the Quest and they have the PlayStation VR, and but those right now VRs are really only being used by the public
Mhm.
for video games at the moment.
Mhm.
I did actually see that when they did the Lion King, the
Mhm.
live action Lion King, they
Mhm.
were actually making that all in VR. So technically,
Mhm.
actually, they could actually make that whole movie a VR experience for you. So you'd be like literally in the middle of Africa watching them sing "I Can't Wait to Be King." It's actually pretty cool because they could literally be in there and they're surrounded by everything and they're just like, I'm gonna put Pumbaa over here, you know. I was like, that's so cool, and I was like, why haven't I was like, they have they've done it. I mean, they literally all they have to do is give it to us. So
Mhm.
that would be very cool. Um, how do you think that's going to happen? How do you think we're going to get this technology into an everyday person's hands, not just the gamers?
Well, just our talk that we're having this Thursday is about the VR use in healthcare. So just to note, VR is being used by the general public in different ways. Some people are using it to treat PTSD. Some people with chronic pain are using VR for chronic pain treatment. And I have friends right now that are receiving mental health therapy. That's a real big push right now via VR. So it is being used, and I think that mass adoption will occur at the same time that the mass adoption of Web3 and NFTs and the metaverse in general occur. I don't think that it will be something that happens overnight. I think it'll be very gradual. I remember telling my mom about Facebook, and my mom, who might have been 50 back then, was like, "Girl, what would I ever be on Facebook for?" Now she's on Facebook all day and night 20 years later. So I think that it's going to be a very gradual, you can only get this experience with the VR headset. So you go out and get it, or this perk comes from being in this place in Decentraland at this time with your Oculus. So I think that it will just slowly but surely evolve, and everyone will be using them in 10 years from now.
Well, and then and that is true. I mean, I remember back in the '90s when cell phones first came out. Some people had them, some people didn't.
Exactly.
Most people had beepers at that time, and not cell
Mm-hmm.
phones because they couldn't afford the cell phones or they didn't want this big block of brick to
You
put. You
remember,
couldn't
right?
put that in your purse. I mean, you couldn't, let
So
alone
that's
your
where we're
pocket.
at. That's where we're at with Web3. That's the perfect analogy of where we're at with Web3. That big Aki cell phone that people don't really understand, everybody can't afford, nobody really sees the need for it. That's where we are with Web3. And so if you can see now that you can't even leave home without your iPhone, you can see how this technology will slowly become a
Right.
part of our daily
It
lives.
right. It needed to be that somebody utilized the technology in a way that it made it like vital for everybody to have it in their hands,
Right.
which hasn't
Exactly.
happened. I
Exactly.
mean, I mean, it is
Exactly.
happening, but it hasn't happened yet, and that's because not everybody had a cell phone, and then the iPhone, as you said, came out. Smartphones came out, and everybody was like, "Well, now I need to have that." And now, as you said, everybody has a computer in their pocket. You know, so I can. I'm sorry.
Oh no, just to jump off of what you just said about everybody not seeing the need. That's one of the main use cases that people are talking about in healthcare is the need for us to own our patient healthcare data, right? If I could own my data in the form of an NFT, and whenever I came to the physician, all I had to do was pull out my wallet and you scan my NFT, and now all my medical records, every diagnostic exam, all my labs are right there, and I have control of it, not big media or big farm companies. That is one of the major pushes for NFTs in the major use cases in healthcare. And when those types of use cases actually come about, everyone is going to want to have a wallet, an NFT, understand decentralization. So as these and so that's key to point out is that it's the building stage. So as it's being built, you can't see the usage yet. But once these things become available and so much more easy to use, once we're able to download one thing on our phone that can get us a pass into all these concerts, I think that that is when mass adoption is really going to take place.
Mm-hmm. So, so let me ask you, what actual pieces of hardware are you looking at for your specific metaverse?
So for our specific metaverse, the hardware that we will need are AI, the VR glasses. We
Mm-hmm.
don't want the headset because remember these nurses will be at work at times. We don't want anything like too tight on their head for a headache. So we have glasses and wearables like similar to the Apple Watch that takes your heart rate, wearables that can take your blood pressure, wearables that can monitor your EKG, different wearables, maybe even in the future, wearables that can scan your brain. All this technology it already exists. It's a matter of just combining it and bringing it into the metaverse.
Right. And so for the nurses, is it going to be more of an augmented reality?
Yes,
So it's going to
yes,
be
it
more
will be.
augmented for you guys than
Yes.
it will be VR, unless you're doing the training, as you were saying earlier. I mean, the training would be more of like more VR because they're doing their training, they're doing all of those
It will be a
simulations.
combination. Yeah, it'll be
Mm-hmm.
a combination of AR and VR.
So could you walk me through like a scenario of how this would work, like on an so let's say that we're like 5-10 years into the future from where we are now. Walk me through like a few 10-30 minutes of what a nurse would be doing in the
Okay.
hospital.
Okay, so let me set it up for you. So nursing, to be clear, our focus is a nursing student, right? So nursing students often are paired with preceptors during their courses. And then when they have a preceptor, they go to the hospital and they follow the preceptor all day at work to see what she does. So what our training environment would offer, that nursing student would put these glasses on and basically walk into the hospital, meet her preceptor. The preceptor will say, okay, today we're going to deal with patients that have CHF. We're going to go up to the heart floor. Now we're going to walk up. And so this nurse with her Oculus, the nursing student with her Oculus or her headset, whichever tool we're using, is walking with her preceptor through this augmented reality hospital, practicing all the things, spiking IV bags. Now, I believe the technology will have to come about that makes it feel more real, right? But
Mm-hmm.
just walking through the steps of this is how you spike an IV bag. This is what it feels like when you're putting in an IV, because that's the gap that's occurring. There aren't enough skilled nurses to really train them. So they're missing out on a lot of hands on training. So that's what we want to provide with this augmented reality.
You know, I was a CNA
Mm-hmm.
quite a few years back
So
before I
you know what
became.
I'm talking about. So
So
you
I
know what I'm
do.
talking
I
about. Yeah.
do because I remember I went through I did it in Massachusetts. So the CNA course was actually a lot less time consuming than a lot of other states. So if I had done it in Maine, it would have been, I think, 3 months, like 8 hours a day for like 5 days a week for 3 months, I believe. For mine, it
Mm-hmm.
was only 4 days a week for 8 hours for a month. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot less training. But I remember the last week of training, we went in and went into an Alzheimer's and dementia unit and worked with them for a certain amount of time. And I remember specifically feeling like very out of my element. Very out of my element because I hadn't really had that physical training as much as I had wished I had. So I remember going in and my instructor being like, "Okay, Chad, you're going to go in here and you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'll come back in a half hour to see how you're doing." And I'm like, "Uh, okay, wish me luck," because like this guy had sores on, like he had the sore right here on the
Mhm.
back because he hasn't been moving, so it's like an open wound and it's pussing. And like every time I tried to touch him, he would like, oh, and I'm supposed to give him a bed bath, and then I'm supposed to change him, and I've never changed anybody before, and I was like, oh, I left there shaking
Mhm.
because literally, because there was like 10 of us that day, and so the instructor had to be with one person at a time. But I just
Mhm.
remember kind of being thrown in and just being like, I have like, I just read a book for 3 weeks, but now you're
Mhm.
just having me do what I read, but I don't actually know how to do it, and now I'm doing it on real people. That's very scary.
Yeah, they have a lot of those type simulations for physicians, but when it comes to nurses and CNAs, maybe because it's just not economical, those type simulations don't reach us. And so now with COVID and the nursing shortage, you have a nurse that's already overworked. So when they bring a student, and I witness this all the time at work, when the students get to work in the morning and their teacher is assigning them, the teacher is assigning 3 nursing students to one nurse. That nurse has an attitude. She's mad already. She's walking ahead of them. So you know that there's no way they're going to get the hands-on practice that you can testify yourself you really need.
Right. Well, and that's the thing about nurses, but people don't. Well, I mean, people notice this. This is something. So my wife is a doctor,
Uh-huh.
and one thing that happens quite often when people are talking about their experience in the hospital or something like that, they're like, "Oh, the nurse was so attentive. They did this and they did this and they did this, and I saw the doctor for 5 minutes." And it's like, well, that's the doctor's job.
That's how it works.
The nurse is the one that does the physical stuff. Unfortunately, the doctor is in the back with a stack of paperwork. So they're sitting at their desk doing that because,
Mhm.
yeah, they only see you for 5 minutes. That's not their job
Mhm.
as much to do the physical work. So when you're giving the nurse, like as you said, 3 students to tell them how to do things, the nurse is running around with their head cut off because they have all that physical stuff that needs to be done. They're the ones. They are what I would say they're the head. They're the head of the hospital because, and what I mean by that is that it's kind of like, for instance, when you're at a restaurant, who do you interact with the most?
The waitress.
The waitress. They are the head of the company. They're the ones that represent the company pretty much more than anybody else because you're with them the whole time. If you leave and had a bad time, it's no matter if whether it was the cook's fault or anybody else's fault, it's the waitress's fault.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what we're very well aware of at the Huddle Dow. That's why we want to take charge in this leadership. We want to take charge in this innovative environment because we want to make sure that this technology hears the cries of the nurses. Like I really feel, just from my own personal experience, I'm so burned out as a nurse because during COVID, everybody was saying we're heroes, we're heroes, we're heroes. And honestly, in my experience right now, the patients, everybody in the hospital is so angry that I don't feel like a hero. I feel so demoralized, so just by management, by patients, by their family members. This is like the most difficult time that I've ever experienced in my career. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I'm doing with the Huddle Dow because we want to be like that gap in the middle for new nurses, for older nurses, for tech savvy nurses, for non tech savvy nurses. We want to bring everyone to the table and say, what do you think we need to do to keep this profession moving forward? Because right now, I think if you talk to any nurse right now, Chad, they will tell you that they're on the verge of a nervous breakdown or quitting. It's despicable what they are requiring of us right now. And honestly, I don't know how much longer I'm gonna be able to do it.
I hear you. Yep, it's all right. Um, I, co- I have a couple of friends who are also going through some stuff, so I completely understand. It's the hospital, unfortunately, any hospital, I think, because again, my wife just got through medical school. She went through residency. She had to do rotations in different hospitals, and then now she's doing a fellowship and stuff like that. Unfortunately, no matter how nice everybody is, there's so much politics when it comes to the hospital, and everybody that's in there, the higher ups, they're not there for the workers. They're not there for the workers. It's just the plain fact. And
Not at all.
and it doesn't matter what hospital you're going to. It really
Yeah.
doesn't. I haven't heard one story about being like, oh, but this hospital they treat their no. It's
Yeah.
wherever you go, and so that's why what you're doing is, I think, extremely vital, and I'm really pushing and hoping that you can get that support. Is there anything that that my listeners can do to show support in that? Is there something that we can be doing to get the word out there that this is something that's being done?
Well, we're on Twitter. We have Twitter Spaces. We're having a virtual workshop this Thursday. If anyone would like to attend, I think this will probably come out after that, though. But mainly, just if you are business savvy and you feel like helping some nurses learn how to run a business, because that's been the greatest challenge for us moving out of the hospital where we spend so much time. Sometimes we're so far removed from ideas like building pitch decks and business funding. All these are very new terms for us, so those are our greatest weaknesses right now. So if you have any listeners that feel compelled to help us out in those areas, I think that's what we need the most right now.
There is a website that I want to get you involved in. That it's actually how I met Marie. Has she talked to you about it?
No, no, not that I know of.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure that I mention it after the podcast.
But I
No.
did want to tell you, when you asked about someone transitioning, there's an NFT project called the People of Crypto, I believe, and they're in Sandbox, and their whole thing is for you to be able to go in and pick any idea that you want to pick. So that's a really good project for anyone that is transitioning and
Mm-hmm.
that wanted to be able to participate in a non-binary type of way. That's a very good platform, Sandbox, and it's called People of Crypto.
I like that. It almost sounds like Krypton, and I'm a big Superman fan. So when I'm telling people, I'll be like, "People of Krypton." They'll be like, "Is that?
Yeah.
Are you sure that's what it's called?" Yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah,
That's what
that's
it's
I think
called.
that's what it's
People
called.
are just gonna be reading Superman comics. They're gonna be like, "I
Yes,
don't know
it is.
why
It's
Chad is
called.
giving this to me. I don't understand how this benefits me." So I'd like to give you the floor. I'd like to give you the floor. Because I don't really have too many questions, too many more questions about that. So, I know that if there was anything more that you wanted to discuss on this, anything that we didn't cover, please tell me. And then I know that there was another subject we wanted to discuss, so I'm going to give you the floor for that too.
Okay. I think that just as far as Web3, I just really feel like it's a wonderful opportunity for us to own our what we do on the internet, for us to own our own data, for us to own our own health information. I just think that it's very empowering. It's really new. So a lot of jobs are being created by this new world. And I think it's very for nurses that may be considering another career. I think that software development and engineering are careers that nurses will do very well in. A lot of our skills translate very well into those types of jobs. So I just think that it's a great time right now to explore Web3 if you are interested.
Hmm. Okay. I mean, it's definitely something. It's so cool. I just love this whole new movement that's coming on with Web3. Some of the stuff that I've heard with the metaverse and all that kind of stuff coming out. It's very, 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 very cool. Who do you think is going to come out with the augmented glasses first? Who do you think it's going to be? I mean, my guess is Apple. That's my guess.
Probably Apple. I think Apple will do it best. I'll say that. I think Apple will do it best just based on the things that I've seen. So yeah, I think Apple and Apple, yeah, I think it'll be Apple, but it'll be interesting to see because there are a lot of startups that are being built every
Mm-hmm.
day in Web3. So I'm looking forward to see the disruptors. I'm looking forward to seeing those that come and take Apple down. Like I believe that Web3 has some real heavy hitters on the rise. So it's
I
going to be
mean,
interesting.
you'd never know. I mean, back when right before Facebook came out, we had MySpace, and that's what we were using. That's what the
Yep.
younger generation were using at that time. That's what I had. And I remember when Facebook came out, it is kind of funny to me on how Facebook overtook MySpace because MySpace was a lot more customizable. You could force people to listen to your music, and you had like these.
Uh-huh.
It forced people in high school and middle school to actually learn how to code,
Hmm.
which was really really cool. I don't know if you used MySpace when it was first
So
out.
I'm a bit older than
Yeah,
you, Chad. So
yeah.
I kind of missed MySpace, but I do what you said about being able to force people to listen to your music. That's a large part of Web3. And Web3, the social media platforms, you will own your social media platform. It won't be owned by Facebook or Instagram. So everything you post, that's why you need a wallet. You don't necessarily have to have crypto, but you have to have an identifier for what you own. So you'll own your experience. So you will be able to force the people that come into your experience to listen to your music. And so that's why I think it's so wonderful because it puts control back in our
It's
hands.
just surprising that MySpace left because when Facebook first came out, all you could do was post photos, and that's literally all it was. And then and I was like, and I remember when it first came out, my wife was like, you gotta do this, because we started dating in high school. So she was telling me in high school, she was like, you gotta do Facebook, it's so much better than MySpace. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like nothing, there's nothing on here. And I use Facebook to this day. I don't use MySpace.
Mm-hmm.
um
Is
and
it still
it's
operable?
I
MySpace?
went on to MySpace a few months ago because I wanted to know. I wanted to know if my. I
Uh,
was like, is my thing still there? I wonder what music I was listening to then.
uh, uh-huh.
And it's completely different now. It's not even close to what it used to be. They could make a big comeback if they ever decided to go back to their original format. I'm telling you.
LimeWire made a comeback via NFTs. I don't know if you have heard about it, but
No.
they may make a comeback. They may make a comeback because LimeWire is coming back
if
via
you
NFT.
if you took what MySpace was back then and put it to what this is, because I can just imagine people, as you said, coming into your experience, coming into your your room, as I would call it. I mean, you go in and it's like you have your favorite movie posters are on the wall,
Have
and
you
that.
been to Decentraland? Because that's exactly what it is. People have their houses in Decentraland. You go in, you see all of their art, they're playing their music. That's exactly what it is. I go check it out when you get a chance.
Well, how can I do it without a headset? Because I have a
Yes, you
VR, but
can.
I have
You
it's
You can
only
go
a.
to Decentraland on your laptop without a VR. You can go to decentraland.com and it's going
Mhm.
to ask you to connect a wallet or play as a guest. You don't have to connect the wallet. The experience is a little bit more detailed when you do, but play as a guest and take a look around. You'll see the worlds. Even Gucci has replicas of their store there. It's like a whole new world being built.
It's crazy because I didn't know anything about this, and it's right there. It's right there, but yeah,
You can start building in there today.
yeah. I might have to take a look at
I
it.
think you're going to like it, Chad.
I think I will. Oh man. So there was another topic, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Do you remember what it was? I could look
Let me go.
over
I'll go
here.
back to
Yeah.
I think that it was about the challenges of being a black woman and being a founder. I think
Yeah,
we
yeah. I
can
would
talk
like to
about
know a
that.
little bit about that. Yeah, I would really love to know more about that.
Okay, yeah. So for me, being a founder is very new. Like I said, I only ever imagined being a nurse. My mom retired after 40 years of nursing. So that's all I ever knew. I've never met any entrepreneurs that were able to really pour that spirit into me. So becoming a founder is very new to me. And right away, that's how I met Marie. Is right away I noticed that there weren't many other Black women founders that I could lean on for support. Not only are there not that many other women to lean on for support, there's also so little, I guess there's a lot of gatekeeping, and there's a lot of like, who are you, how could you even, like, why would I even introduce you to, and so that takes a lot. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of confidence and a lot of talking to yourself every day, saying that I do deserve to be here, my idea is valid, what I'm building is worth being built, and I'm just going to keep showing up. And that's been very, very difficult for me, especially while still working as a nurse. But it's also very motivating because I know that when I get to the other side of it, I'll be able to help somebody else. I
Mm.
read somewhere recently that Black and Latina founders receive less than zero point 0.5 of the $166 billion that are often given out by VCs. And I think that it's because of our inability, not inability, but our we don't learn how to network. We don't learn how to I don't know if you're familiar with the term crab in a bucket, but that's a term that we use in the Black culture that says we have this crab in a bucket mentality. And if you've ever seen crabs in a bucket, as one crab is trying to crawl out, another crab keeps pulling it down. And I think that that crab in a bucket mentality is what prevents us from networking effectively. And I think effective networking makes is what makes you more marketable. You learn more, you meet more people, you get your story out more. So I think effective networking is something that we don't practice enough. And I'm saying that also from a very naive point of view. Like I said, I'm very new to being a founder, but when I'm speaking to other Black women that I know that have been founders for a long time, they even say, oftentimes I'm in rooms where no one looks like me. And that's why, because we don't effectively network. We don't say, hey, girl, I met so and so over here. Let me introduce you. That's not, we just don't do that. And that's something that me, Marie, MJ, Black women in Web3, those are things that we're trying to change. And that's an internal problem, right, within our culture that we may not talk about a lot, but it exists. We're not as eager to share information. And then you have to think that a lot of us come from situations where we had to, get what we could. And so you don't always feel confident giving out your contact or sending an email on somebody else's behalf. Those are things that I'm just learning. And so I think that as we learn that, I think we'll be able to grow more.
Yeah.
Because there are Black women VCs that can fund other Black women. They just haven't met each other yet. So I just think that it's a matter of us just putting our foot to the pavement and getting the word out.
And finding each other too.
Finding each other, finding each other. That's
Mm-hmm.
so true. Finding each other.
Mm. I mean,
Yes.
and where else? I mean, how can that happen? Really? I mean, people use. I mean, for instance, I'm trying to get my podcast off the ground, and so one of the things I did is I went on Facebook and I found some podcast like groups and stuff like that. Did that do anything? Not really. You know, not much. Not much going on. I mean, you try to get yourself out there as much as you can, but what you really need is face to face.
Contact. Yeah.
You face to face contact. It's very
Yeah.
very difficult to just go on Facebook or go on to any kind of social like LinkedIn or something like that and get people to even look your way. You could send them a message. They're just, I'll look at that later, or I'll probably never look at it, or something like that. You need that face to face. But how do we make that happen? Especially when we're going through COVID right now, when a lot of the social events still aren't happening.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Twitter Spaces? Because even though you don't see each other face to face in Twitter Spaces, I feel like I've made a lot of really genuine connections via Twitter Spaces. And that's the only platform that I've really used for connections outside of LinkedIn and Instagram. But I think Twitter Spaces really allow you to make connections without being face to face. And I think I met Marie in a Twitter space. And so I'm not sure if you have explored those, but I find a lot of value in Twitter spaces. I learn a lot. I meet a lot of people. Yeah, I think Twitter spaces are a really cool way to grow your community.
Hmm. Oh, I mean, I'll have to take a look at it. I've never really been one for Twitter. I've tried. I mean, I have a personal Twitter, and then I had a Twitter for a podcast that I was doing years ago. But other than that, I never really got into it. I did get onto Twitter in order to read all of the things that Donald Trump was saying right before he got kicked off because because I got some popcorn and I just kept hitting reload.
Yeah, that had to be hilarious. That had to be hilarious. But same with me though. I was never a Twitter user until my Web3 journey began because mainly that's where the advertising and marketing for NFTs and metaverses it mainly takes place on Twitter. I think because of Meta, Facebook and Instagram don't allow you to market NFTs and metaverses as much as they do on Twitter. So Twitter has a little bit of more of a decentralized friendly environment. So that's why I'm on Twitter so much now. But even outside of decentralized environments, Twitter, whatever you're interested in, there's a huge following, and then they send you all the people that are following what you're interested in. So I think it's a really cool way to stay up to date on anything that you're interested in. Because even nursing, I'm exposed to like worldwide nursing information via Twitter. So, and I'm sure you can get it Facebook and Instagram as well, but I feel like it's not as filtered on Twitter. So, but I'm still getting used to Twitter myself.
Well, I mean, I'll definitely have to check it out.
Yeah.
So awesome. Okay, so before we end the interview, I did have one other question. Is there anything that you wanted to plug? And I always give this opportunity to people. So either like a speaker that you like, a TED talk, or like a book that you think is really really interesting, like maybe a book about, as you said, like a black founder or something like that, something that maybe you have come across that people, if they were really interested in some of the stuff we discussed today, they might be able to go out and get a little bit more information.
Okay, so one book that I love to tell everyone about is called The Go Giver. I'm not sure if you heard of it, but The Go Giver is a book that was written by John Mann, I think his name is, and it's a very good book about just spreading goodness and how that comes back to you. And then Kathy Hackle wrote a book called Navigating the Metaverse that I think is a really good resource for anyone that is interested in learning more about Web3 and the metaverse. So, yeah, John Mann and The Go Giver is a book that I read over and over and over again, and it reminds me to just keep giving, and it teaches me how that comes back to me. So those are two books that I would definitely recommend.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll definitely have to. Maybe I'll put a link in the description for the episode and just let people know that it's available, something that they can take a look at.
Yeah, and that book by Kathy Hackle, Navigating the Metaverse. She's the chief metaverse officer right now, and the book is a really good book for learning more about NFTs and anything related to Web3.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, and all of that stuff is coming. So read about it and get prepared.
Thank you, Chad.
Be the
Thank
first
you.
in the know. Be the first in the know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, I really appreciate you coming in. It's been absolutely wonderful getting to see you for the first time and getting to know a little
Yes.
bit more about you. Is there anything that you're working on now that we should know about?
Mainly, just doing the IBM data analytics boot camp. I just want to shout that out. I'm really enjoying the coursework, and I'm looking forward to finishing it and hoping that I can get a job in tech. And I'll keep you posted. That'll be a whole new journey for me. So
Hey,
I want to come back and talk about that for
you are
sure.
welcome back anytime. You just text me day or night, 3 o'clock in the
Okay.
morning. But Sharonda.
Thank you,
She's
Chad.
coming
Thank you
on
so much. I'm so
tomorrow.
excited to see your podcast grow. And before you end, I do like to always ask anyone that I meet, is there anything I can do to help you?
um, Share my podcast.
Okay, I will for sure. I will for sure.
I literally
I
have, and
will
I'll,
for
I'll
sure.
tell you right now, and this is no diss to any of the people that I've had on here, but I have the meeting, we have the interview, it goes really well. I send them the link to the thing, and I never hear from them again. And
Oh, I will
well,
not do that.
and
I
no one
will share it.
and I'm like, post it on Facebook. They're like, yeah, sure, maybe, and like I'm just like, no, I mean, like I want people to see what you have to say. I want this to be shared because I think what you're saying is important, and that's what it's for. It's not so much for me. I want the information to get out there, and I want people to get. I mean, I love having these interviews. I learn so much, and I
Mhm.
love it so much. So I mean, if it's just for me, that's fine. But I'd love to get more people to listen to it too.
Yeah, well, I'll be sure to share it with gladness. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, check out the Centraland. Okay, all right.
I will.
Okay.
If you have any comments, concerns, or even something you want to educate me on, please email me at roomtogrowwithchad@gmail.com. Thanks for growing with me. See you when I see you.